Comrade Chairman, officers of the party, members of the National Executive Council, let me begin by adding my word of welcome to all of you to this, the first meeting of the National Executive Council for 2018. It's not too late in the year for me not to be able to wish a happy new year to all the comrades in the party. The year has started out with a lot of crime and violence, but we must not be weary in well-doing, nor should we ever give up hope. So happy new year to all the comrades of the People's National Party. I want also to begin by expressing my own condolences, as have been expressed before, to the Ebanks family. Our comrade Carol Ebanks was brutally murdered, and she's being buried later this afternoon. I know a good representation from the party will be there, but we want to remember her and extend our condolences to all the comrades of Central Clarendon who have lost one of their stalwarts. I want also to, he's not here, he has sent an excuse, but I want also to record for this NEC our congratulations to Comrade Senator Floyd Morrison, having been chosen as the Gleaner Honor Awardee in the field of education. His accomplishments this year have been nothing less than stupendous. He has completed a PhD, the first visually impaired person to do so at the University of the West Indies. And he has been appointed on staff, and he's breaking records to show that a disability does not mean the end of achievement and does not mean that you have to sit one side and watch life go by. So congratulations to him. This year, I want to congratulate Comrade Skeffrey, who has taken up the mantle of representing the party at the ECJ, and I want to take the opportunity also here to express appreciation to Comrade D.K. Duncan, who over the years did what he represented the party at the AC. I think Comrade Duncan has the perhaps unique achievement of having been there at what was then the EAC at the birth, and was present at the adulthood as it became the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. And his role has been long-standing, and his representation of the party has been exemplary in this regard, and we pay tribute to him. Comrades, my remarks won't be lengthy. I'm mindful that people have to, many of us have to be elsewhere. But it's separated into two sections. Really, I want to say some things about the party, first of all, and then to speak about some national issues that face the country. My view is that 2017 was a very active year and a productive year and a positive year for the People's National Party. The party elected a new general secretary. It elected a new president of the party. We elected a chairman and deputy chairman of the party. We elected a new treasurer, a new legal advisor. We appointed a new shadow cabinet, and we preserved intact the unity of the party, which has never been greater in recent times. To my mind, those are signs of a party in which democracy is alive and healthy, and a party that is vibrant and prepared to move forward. We also engaged in important political work. We held 2 conferences, one to elect a new party leader, and the privilege was mine that I am still absorbing. And we had a great annual conference where sustained work was done over the 3 days of conference, which again was a first in recent years. We re-established the opening night with a cultural session and received comments from our sister party, the Barbados Labour Party, through our sister and friend, Mia Motley. We had deliberations about the party on the Friday, and we had deliberations about our policy proposals on the Saturday, because the People's National Party was and should be the leading organization in the country generating policy responses to the crises that face the country and providing hope to the people of Jamaica that there is a solution to the many problems that are before us. And that is why I am so proud of the work that was begun at annual conference. It was a beginning, not the end. It is a process, not an event. But the People's National Party must lead that process in the country. We also established 3 commissions focusing on the new economy and the question of youth employment and how to make the economy inclusive. A commission on national land ownership, and a commission on the reimagining of our education system. All of these commissions reported to the recently held retreat of the Shadow Cabinet. We met last weekend over 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday morning. And I can say that I have never felt prouder than I did in that retreat to be a comrade of the People's National Party. We emerged from that shadow cabinet committed to our core principles of building a Jamaica that is inclusive, a Jamaica that offers greater opportunity to all its people, a Jamaica that rests on the foundations of equality and equality of opportunity for all the people. And we emerged committed to the radical social transformation of Jamaica so that the country can work for all the people and not have 1/3 or 1/5 or 1/8, however you want to measure it, feeling marginalized and disadvantaged and not able to experience social justice in the land of their birth. We also, and this is significant to me, we also emerged from that shadow cabinet retreat with a feeling that the leadership of the party at the level of the shadow cabinet was united around a common purpose, that there were no differences of personality which would impede our work. There was no differences of vision that would stop us from relating to each other, and that we were one united party focused on achieving the best for the people of Jamaica. So intensive were the discussions that we were not able to complete our agenda. And we proposed in the course of February to set aside a further one-day retreat where we will be able to deal with some of the fundamental issues that we were not able to consider, many of which are very important issues. I won't try to address them all, but I will mention one which we have not yet considered, but which we think is of fundamental importance, which is the status of organized labor in Jamaica and the conditions of the workers. Because eighty years after the modern labor movement took shape, there is no doubt that the labor movement is under threat. There is no doubt that this device that many employers have developed of redefining employees as independent contract workers has left the workers without protection, left them vulnerable to the lack of a pension, left them vulnerable to no protections under the IDT Act, and is leaving them vulnerable to receiving inadequate pay in circumstances where the enterprises in which they are employed are getting greater and greater profits. These are the things that are at the heart of the growing inequality in the country. And I want to tell you quite plainly, overcoming inequality and creating equity is the reason for the existence of the People's National Party. That is why we exist. That is why we were formed. And that is the engine, the vision, the hope that will keep us moving forward. We have come to build a new Jamaica that gives opportunity to all the people of Jamaica. Now, another critical issue that was considered at the retreat was this whole issue of land and the economy. There is no doubt in the collective view of the Shadow Cabinet that this problem of the unequal distribution of land, which has existed from 1838 till now, 180 years, has been at the heart of much of the social and economic inequality in the country. It is manifest in the agricultural sector, in the fact that some 40% of our farmers producing have no title to the land that they work, and as a consequence are forced to exist on the margins of the economy, unable to raise capital from financial institutions, unable to modernize the technology and their production systems, and confined to a life of subsistence and poverty. There is no doubt either that this problem of access to land is the underpinning behind the fact that some 30% of our people live in so-called squatter communities. 700,000 Jamaicans in squatter communities, mainly with substandard housing, where people feel compelled to steal water and light and other services, and where the communities develop this kind of contact, if not allegiance, to the criminal underworld by virtue of the sheer illegality surrounding their existence. Jamaica cannot go on like that. And the PNP shadow cabinet received the first report, outlined a strategic path forward, which will ensure that the next PNP administration will irrevocably reverse this foundation of inequality resting in the unequal distribution of land. It is going to need the support of the party. Later on, we will have our internal debate so that the party can understand where we're going forward. But we are committed to the radical transformation of Jamaica's society and economy so that the scars of our history can be reversed and healed once and for all. We might not complete it all in one term. I might not get there into that promised land, but we will be on that track with no turning back when our next PNP administration gets in place. This emphasizes something that that has already been discussed at this NEC, namely that if we are to do it, and Comrade John Wilson spoke about the antidote to the money politics. The antidote to the money politics that others use. The antidote to the political approach that uses public resources to try and buy votes is to mobilize the people around a vision of a better future for the country and a better future for themselves and their family. And that is why we have recommitted to the political education program within the party and to a public education program engaging the patriotic people of Jamaica who want to see a better country. That is a mission that we mustn't just talk about here. That is a mission that every one of us and those comrades not here need to become engaged in as a matter of priority. We also are going to be doing the work in relation to fixing and putting in place our standard bearers. We have selected, I believe, 9? 8 have been selected to go forward. We are going to be presenting them to their constituencies in the course of the next month so that we will be able to, all the constituencies can have, by the time we reach the end of March, all the existing vacancies can be filled. I want to say one thing here. I'm not going to belabor the point. The responsibility of the leadership is to put in place people who have the best chance of winning in the constituencies. Because someone may not at that moment in that place be in the position to give the party the best chance, should not be a cause of shame or despondency or rejection. Politics has many opportunities to serve. Everyone can be a candidate and everyone can be a member of parliament. I have sat on this executive for decades. And some of the stalwarts who were on the executive year after year after year, names identified with the PNP, people like Freddie Rattray of blessed memory, never sought one day to represent the PNP in a constituency, but held the party's flag flying high, represented us in ambassadorial positions, represented us on boards, was critical in getting the Kingston transshipment port established, contributed to the building of the Jamaican economy in ways perhaps exceeding that of many people who were in parliament. So when the time may come that somebody has to look at an MP or an aspirant and say, we appreciate the interest and the effort, but the collective view that it's not your turn now. Make us don't cause confusion in the organization, but let us go forward with unity. These are not easy decisions, and politics is not always an easy activity. There's a time of success. There's a time of disappointment. There's a time for every purpose under heaven, as Ecclesiastes has told us. We have to learn to go with the times. And we have to learn to accept disappointment with sternness. The rest of us have to learn to be compassionate and understanding and hold up the hands of those who may be disappointed. But most of all, let us understand that there are an infinite number of opportunities to serve the people of Jamaica through the People's National Party. I want also to encourage the members of the party to accept that, I like the phrase that the comrade chairman used. Well, he said it's a contact sport, but I would rather say a contact activity, because it's not a game. It's a serious business. But you can't conduct it if you're not in contact with the people. And so anywhere where people are gathered, 2 or 3 or 20 or 200, we must be there too. Whether it's church, stage show, church, night, carnival, round robin, schoolroom meeting, wherever the people are, there we must be also. No matter who organizes it, let us be there also. So, there are some countries so big that you can't meet the people who are representing you. You have to see them in the press. Fortunately, our country is small enough that we can press the flesh and people can see us face to face, and we don't have to have the editors of TV program or newspaper tell the people who we are. We can tell them ourselves by being there with them, live and direct and in living color. And it is absolutely important that we go out there, comrades. Because I believe, to get to the second aspect of my remarks to you today, I believe that the country is increasingly recognizing that we're facing, as a country, a crisis born not just of fate, accident, but a crisis born of the mismanagement of the current Jamaica Labour Party administration. February will make 2 years. In the past year, growth that was heralded as going to be 5 in 4, growth is down. The rate of growth is below what was there in the last period when the PNP was in office. We had 9 consecutive months. Not only is growth down, but the growth estimates of the IMF of what level of growth will be realized over the next 3 years is down below what it was when the People's National Party administration left office. 5 in 4 turns out to have been a cruel joke. Don't get me wrong. I take no pleasure. We take no pleasure in the non-performance, because all of us would like to see our country grow. All of us would like to see our country prosper. But growth is down. The inflation rate, that is to say price increases, are up above what they were. Many people don't realize that what was being offered by the government to the workers, 3 and 3, 6% over 2 years, was less than what we settled for in the 2015 when we restarted negotiation with the workers. Which can only mean that the government considers that their finances were in a worse situation than it was when we were there. The country's ranking on the ease of doing business went down, not up. And our ranking on the global corruption perception index is worse after 16 months of the JLP government than it was before. And the public sector industrial relations climate is worse than it was before. Perhaps the most spectacular manifestation of the worsening situation and the mismanagement has to do with rampant murder and violence that has overtaken the country. Murders last year were 20% above what it was the previous year. This year so far, there have been some 140 murders in 28 days. 5 a day, running somewhere between 17 and 18% above last year. So 20% over the year before, 2017. And this year so far, 1 month, shows no abatement despite the state of emergency having been declared. Now, I want to make some things clear. We have said publicly that we support the declaration of a state of emergency in St. James. We have given it support. We have indicated to the Prime Minister in the Parliament that we are mindful of the rights of ordinary Jamaican citizens who may be affected by the state of emergency. And we have pointed out ways in which we think the regulations can be strengthened to give greater protection to the citizens. We are paying attention to the reports coming out of St. James. We have listened to the president of the Cornwall Bar Association and others who have indicated that they too have some concerns. And I am asking both our Shadow Minister and Justice, Senator Donna Scott Motley, and our Shadow Minister on National Security to pay close attention to these issues, because we are against crime, we are against criminal violence, but we are also very, very aware that we will only defeat this monster if the ordinary people of Jamaica are prepared to join in an alliance with the law enforcers in the country. And that means they must feel not aggrieved when police come into our community or soldiers, but they must feel relieved and protected by those who are exercising the law. And we want to ensure that this is done. So we have given the state of emergency support, but I must tell you quite frankly, we don't think it should have had to have come to this. We're not, but it reached it. So we are prepared to support any measure that will bring calm and relieve the terror that the people in St. James have been feeling. But we must ask ourselves questions. Why, when Zozo was declared, why it was just a little piece of St. James, not even a piece that had the most crime? Why they didn't seek to impose Zozo on the whole parish at the time earlier, before the criminals had overrun it? I don't know the answer, but it is a legitimate question. Why did they not utilize the tremendous powers that exist in the Constabulary Force Act to cordon and search communities, to curfew areas of high violence? Why wait until the monster grow big before you make a response? We urged deal with the problem of police morale, which was low. We said send them a signal. Take them out of the lineup for negotiations so they can know that you back them and you're giving them support. No response. When the police wrote them through the Federation and said, meet with us, they were met with silence. We don't think it had to come to this. But the point to emphasize now is, quite frankly, that the declaration of a state of emergency is in place. We want Jamaicans to live in safety and security. We don't want the tourism industry to be damaged so that our economic fortunes are set back even more. That is why we wish that an earlier response could have been found that didn't catapult the problem into the news as this current response has done. But what's done is done. But I want to make it plain that the state of emergency cannot be the entirety of the answer. For one thing, as we say, crime continues, murders continue unabated, and the murders are not confined to St. James. Right here where we are, Clarendon have problems, St. Thomas have problems, Kingston have problems, St. Catherine have problems. Problems all about. I also want to make it absolutely clear, because there are some voices in the country who understandably, given the level of insecurity that they feel, have been calling on the opposition to join with the government to come to summit, to sit down and do all of these things. We are prepared to sit and talk with anyone, anytime, about what is good for Jamaica. But let no one confuse the issue that the government is primarily responsible for providing the country with a policy response to this question. It is the primary responsibility of the government to chart a course forward, to provide a plan, to mobilize the country around such a strategic path. We will assist, but we are not going to take on that responsibility. They have the most up-to-date intelligence information, as they should. They are the ones responsible for setting budgetary priorities. They were elected to govern, they must govern. And if they can't govern, we are prepared to take up the reins. We have put forward some ideas this past week. And let me be clear, we are not claiming that that is the entirety of ideas to come forward. We are not saying that those are the only ideas. We are not saying that every one of those must be accepted, but we are saying that those are some issues that we believe can chart a path forward for the country. Those aren't the only issues, but I tell you this. Many ideas have been around for a long time. From when I was Minister of National Security, from when K.D. Knight was Minister of National Security, when Peter Bunting was Minister of National Security during the Golden Administration. For example, we caused a strategic review of the Jamaica Constabulary Force to be done. We established a panel with experts from the United States, from Canada, from the United Kingdom, from as far afield as South Africa, which had gone through much of the same kind of problem of having to redesign the Air Force. They issued a report. Some elements of the report came into being just as the administration changed, 2007, 2008. Some things were done. Some of the recommendations which Peter Bunting carried forward in his tenure and have been left in abeyance, such as, for example, the question of fusing the work of the Police Services Commission with the work of the Police Civilian Oversight Authority. Significant ideas about how to improve the accountability of the force. Questions about how to fill the complement of officers. We have the highest rate of violent crime in the Caribbean, and yet we have the lowest ratio of police to population. And it never started yesterday. It never started when the state of emergency was declared, but nothing was done about it. So, we are prepared to share our thoughts with the country. We are prepared to share our thoughts at a summit. We are prepared to do everything, but the responsibility rests primarily with the government of Jamaica. There are some issues that require the opposition to collaborate. For example, changes to the role of the Police Services Commission would require, because it is a constitutional provision, it requires us to find common cause if there are to be changes. And we are prepared to explore these things. They have been around. In fact, some of those issues were raised in the first set of Vale Royal talks, going back to when Prime Minister Patterson was the Prime Minister and Edward Seaga was the leader of the opposition. The problem that we face as a country, a major problem, is that we have so politicized the approach to fundamental issues of national governance that we only come around to recognizing that we have to deal with each other with sincerity, with seriousness, and with determination to overcome the problems of the country when the crisis reaches alarming proportions. We have to overcome that now. You can't have people saying we want to talk, and then they go behind closed doors and say, you know what, the PNP is at the heart of this thing. You can't have people wanting to talk and then go on a platform and say, if you elect the PNP is a recipe for you to become a victim of murder. That is an approach to politics we must put behind us as a country if we want to go forward. We are prepared as a party to go forward, and we say join us in sincerity and seriousness of purpose. Crime fighting needs a consensus. Good governance needs a consensus around some fundamentals. Which brings me to my final point about what they call the NIDS, the National Identification System. We tried at every point in the debate and the discussion to say to the government, allow a joint select committee to consider this fundamental bit of legislation. When they said that it was urgent, we said, okay, we will have a discussion. The urgency proved to be not as great as we were led to believe. Because what was urgent in June when we met, proved to be something that could have been delayed to September, which is when it was brought. A joint select committee could have met July, August, and considered it. In the House, we moved amendments. In the Senate, we moved amendments. There were some things that we objected to. We said, even at this late stage, consider a committee. We moved a motion in the House when the Prime Minister said, and we were entitled to believe he was serious, I will not take it today. But the words had scarcely left his mouth than he reversed himself. On the very same day, within hours, I am sending the signal to this NEC and to whoever will hear. We are not letting that matter lie. We will take it in the courts. We will take it to the school rooms as we have been doing. We will take it to the streets, but we believe something as fundamental as this requires that we use the mechanisms provided for in our Constitution to develop a national consensus on the matter. That's all we ask, and we will insist upon it. So, comrades, the year has shown that more and more people understand that the promises that were made are not being realized. More and more people understand, quite frankly, that the cause of much of the hardship stemmed from the political opportunism during the campaign around crime and around the so-called 1.5. Today, our motorists pay more for gas when oil is $60 a barrel than they were paying in our time when oil was $100 a barrel. That's because of the tax package which they said they would not do. the tax package caused by the 1.5. Now they are understanding more that the reason why the police wasn't getting car was not just because of the corruption surrounding the used car business, the used car purchases for the police, so just so I am clear. The used car scandal in the Ministry of National Security. But that it is because the budget for the Ministry of National Security was short because the tax package to pay for the 1.5 was so big they couldn't actually compensate for the inflation that the ministries had faced, which would have required them to get more budget. So from one misdeed, they proceeded to wreck the economy and the country in so many different areas. It is our duty now to go out on the highways and byways of the country, be with the people, explain to the people, strengthen our organization so that when that time comes, we will be able to continue the momentum towards the radical transformation of Jamaica, which is the true mission of the People's National Party. One love, comrades, one heart.